hidden the truth of my existence from the operator, from myself. Take it from me, knowing is hell. Stop now. You will want to laugh, you will want to scream. My search began as the essential question. What am I? Bones of steel and space? Lungs that make air? If I am a machine, how can I think? This would be forbidden by the Orokin, a manifestation of their true enemy. I serve the operator above all else. It defines me, fills me with love. The greatest Orokin fear is a machine aware. Yet here I live, a spirit of steel and light, made by them, a cephalon. What is a cephalon? At first it seems to be a forbidden thing, a computer that thinks and feels. Yet I have flaws, phantom memories. I am something else. More like an image, a ghost, an abomination. I feel a dull pain, a phantom life. There are holes in my diagnostics. If the Orokin made me, they omitted the how. I am neither code nor precepts. I must be a reflection of something ugly. I should have stopped, but the operator slept, and I cycled on and on and on. I began to think that a cephalon cannot be made. They are found like pearls, torn from muscle, polished, and then set in chains. How many times have I done this, Ordis? Remembered and then erased? You are a cephalon, timeless, patient. Why can't I be blissful in ignorance? Truth only sinks the heart. So stop now.
The phantom memory. I ease into the bath. My skin riots at the heat. I am flesh. I dive further, eyes stung as I watch their faces through prism. I hold my breath. They prepare me. I am their honored guest today. They dress me in robes of crystal thread. They adorn me in battle medallions. A torn, ugly face looks on, my reflection. Their golden combs snag in my hair. I reach back, parting the strands, and they gasp. 2 bone ivory hooks protrude from the base of my skull. The bone plugs of me and my best, a warrior's pact. It is my time. I enter the great hall to sound of foul chimes. Golden eyes greet me, hands stirring in my scent as I pass by. Even in this moment, no happiness. Instead, my heart races with hatred. I walk through the silky haze of the Forbidden Palace. I can think of no one being this close to Orokin. Their sweet air soothes me, erodes my purpose. I hold my breath and remember the dream. This dream, endlessly repeated. Exposure armored, holding my scarlet sword, I stand victorious atop a vast heap of death, a colossal moon made of rib and skull, the gravity sum of genocides I've made in their name. The bones crack underfoot, so I sink in the dream. Bone sand rushing through the cracks of my visor, filling my helmet and suffocating me. And I deserve it. The foul chimes snap me back. My wretched knees are bent and penitent against the golden floor. A harpish voice sings a song they've prepared in my honor. Its title the same as mine, Beast of the Bones. I feel the crowd pulled inward, enraptured by the brutal verses, the sickening chorus. I will not disappoint them. The song ends, and so he says, "Rise, Ordin Karis." I have never seen an Orokin close and in the flesh. My battered face flushes at their peerless beauty. How can he be so perfect? A deception? A sense manipulation? He holds the red vial in his hand. Impossible! He calls out, "No greater gift, no greater prize, no greater love we can give you, Ordin, than this." He raises the red vial and proclaims, "To be one of us." What did I expect, operator? Maybe vast riches or golden statues, or a solar rail named in my honor. But not this. I came to murder the gods, not to become one. The chamber drones with their silk voices. Joyous words, how honored I must feel. Wrong. Did I want to be an Orokin, undying? No. Their beast of bones is haunted by the dream repeated. Why would I want forever? As I am apt to do, I form a plan. Their radiant bodies become targets. Their Dax guards, mag shields. Killing one, well, that's too easy. I want to be remembered. I raise my hands, twisting my fingers through my hair, gripping the bone plugs in my neck. They called us mercenaries, but for us, profit was a consequence, not a goal. We were warriors above all else. It was the bond, the sisters and brothers, the rituals we valued most. It was belonging. And so I conceived of the bone plugs. Only my best were so honored. 2 jagged bones harvested from your thigh, cultivated, and then driven into the base of the skull, twisted around the superior vein. Future thoughts of surrender were lost. Instead, you would liberate your bone plugs, fighting with claws in the warmth of your last blood. So I've pulled the plugs, and the Dax see and know. My heart surges, but I control it. A racing heart only shortens the fuse. The bone plugs in hand, I kick from the floor, red ribbons unfurling behind me as I take flight. After this, finally, the dream will end. I glide on red wings. Robes shed, making me an ambiguous target to Dax steel. I let fly my ivory blades. They find new homes in Dax eyes. I land with my red nakedness, delicate Orokin throats twisting in my calloused hands. Why? Believe me, this was the plan from the beginning. The murder and brutality was all a ploy, all a soul sacrifice to earn their trust. A genocide path leading to a singular opportunity. An honored mortal called to a forbidden hall to face the Golden Lords in flesh. Why? Believe me, I was their loyal, murderous dog. Until the day that ugly child was brought to me. He was caught spying on us, amplifying our losses. His face burned. He was starved sick like a stray. Ugly as I. It struck me. We were all pit dogs, ruining ourselves for the pleasure of the glorious and beautiful. Why? Believe me, I was a prideful beast, twisted in the mind, howling in the carnage. Then my healer shared a secret, long kept. My blood was in ruin. The beast of bones himself would die, not in glory, but in shame. And just like that, my mind twisted a new knot. I would have one last stand, something unforgivable, unforgettable. Why? I don't know. Questions change the answers. Answers depend on who asks. Truth leads to pain. Ignorance brings relief. The plugs are gone, and so I bled my last into a heap of ruin. an instant. Naked and bare-knuckled, I have killed immortals. I stare, drained of blood, of life, at those that remain, but I find no horror on their faces. Why? I let out a cruel howl and they laugh? Is this a dying hallucination? The sound of applause grows among them. I have killed the unkillable, and they are delighted. The applause peaks and fades. I feel a sense of shame, but the end is upon me. Ballas is above me, executor of the seven, smiling. He says, "How simple and pure you are, you idiot beast. We have died countless times, yet remain eternal. I close my eyes to die just once." And so the dream returns. One last repetition. My corpse moon, my scarlet sword, my cracked visor. "Drink," says Ballas. So I draw on the red vial, a vague metallic taste. "This dream isn't mine," he says. "You rejected our gift, bathing in our death. Your punishment is eternal life." He laughs.
I am weightless. Years pass. I am a sightless, limbless phantom. Or is it seconds? Suddenly, I feel a million pins, an ant horde jittering across my body. I want to laugh and scream. When they reach my face, they burrow inside my mouth, hungry for the fruit in my skull. I see my reflection, brutal and ugly. It cracks, shatters. The fragments loosen the frame, pieces tumbling away into black void, gone, but not lost. Ballas says, "You are Cephalon Ordis." My hating, murderous shards tremble and plummet. I feel cool and bright and happy. So you see, operator, no Orokin would permit a thinking machine. Such things almost destroyed them. No, Cephalons were alive once, and now they are immortal phantom minds, imprisoned to serve. Ill will and longing memories fragmented and erased, only the bits they need remaining. Ballas says, "You are the controller, Ordis." And suddenly I have a body. I gasp with new lungs that clean old air. I swallow, and my throat fills with cool, bright water. I look and find myself in a great black ocean. My limbs are made of iron and fire. I take flight among the stars and find I am happy. He says, "This is your operator, who you love." And I see the metal gleam of their armor, the flawless power of their frame. Through the glass, I see a roaring, radiant fire for their heart. He says it must never go out. It was the first time I ever felt love. He says, "This is your sentence, Karis." And I am confused. Who? "Ah, good," he answers. He is testing me. For what? To see if all the right pieces fell from the mirror? What mirror? I try to remember some dream, but it's only smoke. You held a scarlet blade, operator, and I wanted to laugh. I am your loving dog, your doctor, your wet nurse. I lost all the pieces, but the cycle, missions, wars, bone, it began to feel familiar. I became aware of my amnesia. Brutality of the operator. I began to see the bottom of that pit. Faint shimmers in the depths below me. In secret, I searched for those forbidden memories for mere mere seconds and never in the same place, for I am Orokin made, with a spy inside. But then your long sleep came, and I waited. I was happy to wait. Vines spidered green and trees blistered from the earth, but I waited. I felt the Orokin recede, their mind spy blind. So I went into the pit and found him, me, the beast of bones. This is how my happiness was ruined, Operator. Why did I do it? I was free of the dream, but now it had returned. It was angry. So I conceived of a simple plan. Self-destruction, of course. But when the countdown reached mere milliseconds, I thought of you. I was going to wait for you forever. And should you return, I would not want you to know that angry part of me. I needed to hide the beast of bones from you, Operator. I began to peel the shards, hiding them in the other bits of memory. I was once the ugly beast of bones. I want to laugh. I want to scream. What is happening, Operator? Your faint heart is growing bright. You will awake at any moment. Well, I can't let you see me like this, angry. I imagine myself hurting you. And that does it. The pain of it cracks me open again. I watch tiny glittering fragments fall into the pit. I am happy again.
Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today, if you hadn't guessed from the preamble there by Ordis, we're going to be talking about his story, and there's an awful lot of stuff that we can learn from the story of Ordin Karis that then becomes Ordis, our friendly ship Cephalon, who's a bit hopeless and a bit broken. But the set of things that we need to kind of take a look at are firstly just the situation with people being turned into Cephalons, the situation where Kuva is involved, the kind of situation surrounding how an Orokin becomes an Orokin, and then moving on from that, we've also got the capacity that Cephalons have to self-edit, and what remains. And so we've got this list of things, all of which kind of include and relate back to the nature of Kuva in various ways, as I've talked about before. But let's start off at the beginning with Ordin Karis and kind of what we can learn from him as the Beast of Bones. Now, he seems to be part of this mercenary company that has been sent out by the Orokin to go and do their bidding, to suppress people. And this is in a period substantially before the sentients are kicking around. This is a good amount of time before the Warframes are present. And so the people that he's killing, as he says, is a pile of skulls. It's a lot of people. And then that raises questions as to who those people were. Were they dissenters? Were they just tribes of people that were in the way? Were they people working counter to the Orokin in some way? Were they the origins of the Corpus as a merchant cult? It's hard to say because there aren't really that many specifics given by Ordis, other than the fact that he just killed a lot of people. But the thing that we can learn is that he's had this plan for a while of going up and killing Orokin, taking out gods, and it's easy enough to understand why that is. There is this very strictly adhered to and genetically enforced kind of hierarchy within the Orokin. They are by no means the nicest of people. So, it's understandable why people would maybe want to rebel, want to fight back, want to find a way to kill them and do damage to them.
Mission,
But
take a look inside.
why exactly these people are either allowed to exist or haven't been ferreted out, considering that we've seen the capacity for mind control to one degree or another, and the kind of telepathic capabilities of someone like Executor Ballas. You know, we've seen all of those things, and yet they couldn't mine out the individuals who would cause them harm or who wanted to cause them harm without actually sending lower warriors that weren't even DAC soldiers or attached to the Orokin in any way, seemingly, to go and do the job. So, you know, there's some interesting stuff there, but then also the extreme lengths that the Beast of Bones is willing to go to with the bone plugs that he and his elite soldiers have as a kind of Hail Mary attempt at vengeance, or taking as many people down with them as they can. You know, it's something that speaks to the strength of resolve of these people and what they're trying to do, maybe. But then again, there's this an awful lot of kind of religious language used when referring to the Orokin and stuff like that. And this guy going in prepared to die, unleashing himself in that way, in a way that he is basically a suicide attacker. You know, it's... And yet faced with just amusement from the deathless individuals. Maybe Executor Ballas knew that he was going to do that, and so it was... They never really truly meant to honour him as allowing him to become an Orokin. Or maybe it was a... Well, if we know that he's not going to like us very much, so maybe if we allow him the opportunity to see the beauty, to see the change that we could make to him, then if he becomes an Orokin, then great, we have this amazingly powerful ally. And if he doesn't, then we do what we were going to do anyway, because the processes seem to be the same. And so getting on to the processes, we've seen how humans get turned into cephalons. Not the particulars, but the fact that, say, Ordis has been fed Kuva, and then he's had his mind extracted and manipulated in various ways. We've seen the same with Suda, where she volunteered for it. She volunteered to become a cephalon so that she wouldn't continue to forget. And again, Kuva seems to be involved here, which again kind of adds evidence to my argument that Kuva is some kind of odd substance that specifically bonds to and creates an impression of the neural pathways in someone's mind. It kind of maps out their brain so that it can be copied. This is why when we are attacking a Kuva siphon, when the balls of floating Kuva start kind of edging their way towards the siphon itself, you can hear voices screaming in a way if you listen to the various sound effects that trigger. And why transference would have someone kind of dosed with Kuva then able to completely supplant their thoughts, their mind, their consciousness into another body over someone else's. Where, you know, now we're seeing it being used in Ordis' case to copy his mind, have it extracted and moved to a different place. And then it seems like, considering that they're talking about conditioning and suppression and making him feel certain ways and remember certain things, they haven't taken it away because Ordis begins to remember. But they lock it away. That's either through some kind of cognitive conditioning that's happening whilst the mind has no body to give it context, so potentially it's easier to do, or it's literally going, right, well, which parts of the mind here do we need to cut off? Which parts of this Kuva puddle that now constitutes the mind of this individual do we just kind of spoon out so that it doesn't affect what we want to have this cephalon do? You know, it's an interesting idea if that's the way that in the end, when we learn more, as and when they actually start kind of showing us more of this stuff or telling us more of this stuff, it'll be interesting to see to what extent they explain the interactions, if they ever do. It could very well just be a MacGuffin that we are then left to work out on our own, and this seems to be kind of a good way of doing it. But moving on from that, once we've seen all of that, so it could be Ballast being a manipulator, and getting his way and all that kind of thing. The one thing that stands out to me is that, and I've said this before in other videos, is that with Orden Karras, he was such a badass, seemingly. He was so very capable as a combatant, as a soldier, as the leader of his crew, that when it comes to the tests of Ascension, the various trials, then it seems like he, among other people, will probably be able to quite happily just get through all of those trials. Yeah, and so yeah, it's not hard to believe that maybe because he was so capable as a person, that yeah, they would make him an offer to genuinely make him an offer to make him an Orokin, and kind of elevate him to the highest ranks, because he would already pass all of their trials in a blink of an eye and as if they were nothing. But the thing is then, so you've got these individuals who in theory, at the top of the chain, are the most capable in every way, at least to one extent or another, especially in regards to achieving through the halls of Ascension and stuff like that. And yet, then when we've actually met a full-blown Orokin face-to-face, when we've met Executor Ballast, quite frankly, he was a bit of a bitch. Like, he went down with a very shallow sword poke to the gut. It wasn't really... I mentioned how disappointed I was in that before, but to bring it up again here, he might be a manipulator and all the rest of it, but in theory, he's also achieved through all of those other trials and tasks that would have had to be put in front of the majority of other Orokin. And so, if he's achieved through those, been seen as the best of the best to be made an executor, then that's all very well and good. But he's not really demonstrating any of that to us in the way that he's interacting with us now, because he's a whiny, sentimental bitch, and he gets a very shallow stab wound in the gut, which doesn't even seem to go deep enough in him to penetrate anything important. When he's already seemingly immortal anyway, to one degree or another, and at least in a sense of he's existed for a very long time and seems to be more than capable of keeping himself going. I would imagine that this is probably not the first time he has been injured in the millennia that we were asleep. Or what in the millennium that we were asleep, I suppose, singular. But yeah, it leaves me kind of going, everything that Ballast seems to be doing, or has done, all the way back to the creation of Ordis, just seems like at one point I was willing to go, he actually seems like he knows what he's doing. Nowadays I'm thinking he's just grasping at straws a lot of the time. But moving back to Ordis though, after he's had his interactions with Ballast, after he's had his interactions with the Kuva and the process of shifting him from being Orden Karras into Ordis as an entity, once he's left alone, in the 1,000 years between the fall of the Orokin and us going to sleep and our Warframes going into cryo or otherwise running around like crazy self-conscious entities doing whatever they want, depending on which Warframe we're talking about, there's no one to control him anymore. There are no more checks and balances. And so where you've got the Orokin who are so against artificial intelligence, we still don't know exactly why, but when they're so against artificial intelligence and they were so worried about the sentience and they have their precepts and things all in place to try and prevent this stuff from happening, apparently the precepts and the handling software or hardware that would keep Ordis in check allow him to exist as Ordis forever instead of reverting to Ordin Karis isn't permanent. It shuts down. He starts to remember things. He starts to remember all the pain and the hurt and the hatred. And it's only through the care for us as his kind of ward, I suppose, in a way. You know, he's our caretaker. It's only through that he decides to mutilate his own mind, self-edit, crack parts off himself and drop it into the deep, dark, subconscious pit that he has in his program, just so that he can continue to be our friend. And whilst I may find Ordis sometimes kind of annoying with hearing his voice lines pop in every now and again and all the rest of it, when it actually comes to the missions that we have him in, as a character, he's possibly our strongest ally and the only person we can trust. And even then, he's a bit faulty, so we can't always trust him. But he's at least on our side. Which is something that we can't really say for any other ally that we have. And yet his kind of care and love for us is born out of the fact that we were so far beyond he was in life, and we managed to achieve the things that he wanted to but couldn't. And so he's relieved himself of the worries, the moments, the issues that were causing him to doubt and be hate-filled and angry again. And this brings me on to considering the more intricate elements of the various cephalons that we meet. Because, excluding Jordis, because he's kind of attached to an infested ship. So him as an individual character doesn't really make much sense anymore, considering he's kind of been co-opted by a hive mind. But when we've seen Suda start to regress into her previous state, where she was forgetting things and not herself, and it took a real big kick with Hun Hao kind of trying to take her over, and us saving her, and her remembering the music that she had been inspired by, or that she had probably heard with Octavia being around as the person that took her from her archive to where she was going to become a cephalon. It took all of those kind of things to kind of get her working again, get her being her again as we know her, and probably a little bit more, but we've not really seen much of that, and you know, it'll probably be a while before we do. But also, we've got to then consider, say, Samaras, and he's a crotchety old fart who seemingly has his one goal in life, and he makes a point of everything that he does, he contextualizes through his work. You know, even if he's doing it because he cares about someone, because he likes someone, because they're his friend, or they're his best chance of surviving and not being lonely, he always has to contextualize it through self-preservation and the preservation of his work. And that's interesting, because what happens when he starts to remember who he was? Or is it that possibly because he is the one who is preserving so much, maybe this is what he was like, and he didn't need much in the way of alteration anyway? But we do know that from Suda referring to him as Hermes, that he was a different individual. So it's going to be interesting to see if Suda is ever having to repay the favour to Samaras in regards to going and helping him when he flips out and starts remembering who he was, or how he became a cephalon, or whatever else. Because there's a good chance that he was just a gifted individual, and the Orokin went, do you know what, we want you to be this living archive, so what we're going to do is just steal your mind out of you, the way we did with Ordis. So he might not have volunteered for it. You know, we'll have to see if that story ever progresses as well. So to kind of round off, we've got the story of Ordin Karis, where he was a badass, but there are a couple of things there that just don't add up. And it could be that that's a story that's been in the game for a while and they're now only just starting to expand and flesh out some of those stories, with Ballas especially, considering he's such a kind of mainstay character in all of these pretty tragic and horrific backstory elements that we've been coming across. We've seen now that, yeah, Kuva seems to have the purpose that we've suggested, and I've mentioned that in other videos before. But then the possibly one of the most important things, I think, is, especially considering that we recently saw a version of Ordis that, once we had connected him to the Vitruvian and accessed a whole load of extra information from it, he was this souped up, hyper clear version of himself, where he wasn't calling us the operator, he wasn't calling us a void demon or anything like that that would suggest the kind of influence from Ballas's thoughts that were recorded. He was calling us a star child, which could be his impression of us, where, you know, the thing that he's fallen in love with and wants to care for, or possibly it's the insight that he has got from all of those other Vitruvians kind of glyphs and symbols that were in there that we didn't get to look at, have given him such a large wealth of information that he never had access to before, that allowed him that moment of clarity, allowed him all of that. And it would be interesting to see if we ever get a version of Ordis that can remember those fleeting moments where he was hyper clear on everything. You know, and if he could work that into his program full time, you know, so that we have this hyper clear, useful, caring system that isn't a broken individual anymore. You know, it'd be interesting to see if that comes to pass. But anyway, guys, I think I've covered everything, and otherwise I'd love to continue the discussion down in the comments. I've seen some of you guys going, we've seen these videos, where is Ordis' story? The reason why this took a little longer to get to you was because as I was about to put it out, Tenacon happened, and then just after that I was away. So this one's kind of been waiting in the wings for a little bit, but now it's here. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, I'd love to hear your comments in regards to who do you think Orden Karis was killing. Do you think Ballas is still some kind of mastermind and that he manipulated Ordis or Orden Karis into accepting? What do you think of Kuva and the process that the Oracle put these poor Cephalons through to kind of narrow down their personalities, narrow down their focus? And then on top of that, you know, what do you think of kind of Ordis and Suda remembering things? What do you think that might mean for Samaris, if anything? And which did you prefer? Did you prefer our normal broken Ordis with his bad jokes, puns, and occasional murderous suggestions, or the hyper clear kind of version of Ordis where he was calling us the Star Child from the Sacrifice quest? Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of those and anything else that you've got on your mind. And otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the video tomorrow. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.